Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192 or 0721 223081, or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, Rotating Equipment Repair Technician, Valve Overhaul Technician, Machining Technician.
Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
A fine morning to you. Welcome to the CBS Newspaper Review and the Morning Brew. My name is DANFLOW, LINDWE. Now, today I'll be taking you through the headlines, the top stories making headlines in our dailies. We'll start with, so today I have two newspapers with me, the Standard newspaper and the Daily Nation. So the headline in the Standard newspaper reads, "Killers in Uniform." And there's pictures of police officers. This was during the Gen Z protest last year in June 2024. And in the Daily Nation, the headline reads "Short-lived truce." There's a picture of President William Ruto and his predecessor, former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the story is basically about their fallout and politics, yes. So we'll start with the Standard newspaper, "Killers in Uniform," and it reads, "Gen Z executioners in clear violation of the constitutional right to life and freedom to protest. The police, working with elements of Kenya Defence Forces, killed innocent youths during last year's Gen Z anti-tax protest." So despite a parliamentary committee ordering the police oversight body, that is IPOA, to investigate the deaths and make its findings public, the state agency has failed to do so. Only the media remains a defender of the public by revealing these deadly transgressions and identities of the killers. So Again, in the Standard newspaper, in the splash, the top page, there is a picture of John Kaboi, police officer, Central Police Station, and another unidentified KDF serviceman being pictured there. Of course, the chaos that happened around the anti-tax protest last year are very visible on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Remember, this comes at a time when BBC just produced a documentary surrounding the whole Gen Z anti-government protest that took place last year in June, and it is also being highlighted here in the Daily Nation. On my top left, page 2, it says, State stops screening of BBC expose on protesters' killings. So this emerged as pressure mounted on the government to take action against security officers who unlawfully executed and maimed scores of unarmed protesters during the anti-tax demos in June last year. So that documentary was supposed to be aired on the local TVs yesterday, but due to pressure, again, they're seeing pressure from state agencies, that expose, that the BBC documentary was not aired. But of course, it is on YouTube, and people are gaining access to it. Remember, this is not the first. This is not the first production the country is trying to tame. Recently we had the play by Butere Girls, Echoes of War, and the act by the government to try to tame that play actually made it more popular. We're seeing a similar reaction here with the BBC expose. Named, it's the title of the BBC documentary is Blood Parliament. So we are hoping to see how that goes. Now, another story here in the Daily Nation, short-lived truce. So Ruto allies accuse Uhuru of hypocrisy and radicalizing the youth against current regime. So the Daily Nation highlights the genesis of the fallout. So Uhuru and Ruto won the presidency in 2013, but fell out after the 2017 election. In the rerun to the 2022 polls, outgoing President Kenyatta campaigned against his deputy Ruto. Ruto beat Kenyatta's preferred successor, that was Raila Odinga, the ODM chief, but he has reunited with the ODM leader to stabilize his government. Now, President sought a ceasefire with his predecessor last December, but it appears to have come a cropper. The Daily Nation continues. Last December, President Ruto made a surprise visit to the rural residence of his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta in Ichaweri after 2 years of hostility, including a raid by security agencies on the home of the son of the country's fourth president. Now, the meeting between the two allies turned foes signaled a thawing of relations, but the ceasefire seems to have collapsed. With allies of the president recently going after Mr. Kenyatta, hammer and tongs, following his statement egging on the youth to demand accountability from the government. Interesting story. It goes on in page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Another top story here being highlighted in the Daily Nation is hard times, why ugali will soon become a costly meal. So millers have warned that maize shortage in the North Rift will soon cause the price of flour to rise. As the scramble for the scarce grain intensifies, some millers have been forced to suspend operations and reduce workforce. So that will definitely be making headlines a few days or even weeks from now. Remember, ugali happens to be the staple food of the country, and yeah, it appears on every table across the country. So that will definitely affect many people, coming at a time when Kenyans are still decrying the high cost of living. And now, on matters education, students caught up in county bursary row. So thousands of learners are caught up in a high-stakes dispute over county bursary schemes. Governors have vowed to initiate contempt of court proceedings against the controller of budget, who has declined to sanction cash withdrawals, citing legal problems. So the story continues on the back page of the Daily Nation. So the needy learners have been caught up in county chiefs and controller of budget feud. So Nyakango, that is the controller of budget, in a circular halted issuance of bursaries to learners by devolved units. So Muranga governor, that is Irungu Kangata, wants the COB committed to civil jail for contempt of court. So at a glance, circular restricts bursaries allocation outside jurisdictions of counties. So the original petition had been filed in February by Nakuru-based activist Laban Omusundi and the Katiba Institute, challenging the COB decision to relax a directive preventing counties from offering bursaries to institutions outside their jurisdiction. So a court ruling in February suspended a decision to have the COB withdraw the circular restricting allocation of bursaries beyond county jurisdictions. So we have seen, yesterday we reported about how the Irungu Kangata, Muranga governor, has vowed to go to court, to take this matter to court. He says the interference with this bursary will actually cause interference with also will have a ripple effect on learners and their schedule in school. So still on matters education, NAT lays claim to 46,000 junior school teachers opening fight with KUPPET. Remember, the junior secondary, the JSS teachers, these are teachers who have been trained to be secondary school teachers, but with the CBC being implemented, they were drawn from secondary schools to primary schools to teach from the grade 7, grade 8, and grade 9 learners. But now, as we know, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT is a body, it is a union that covers primary school teachers, while KUPPET, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, is a body that it is a union that covers the secondary school teachers. So where do they fall under? The 46,000 teachers, the JSS teachers, where do they fall? So according to the Daily Nation, NAT claims the 46,000 teachers are its members. So NAT claims the 46,000 teachers actually belong to their union by virtue of posting and workstations. Remember, they're working in primary schools. Now, it opens a battlefront with the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, which has been receiving agency fees deducted from the teachers by the employer. So note that KUPPET receives there's an amount deducted and it is remitted to the unions. So KUPPET receives this deduction from the 46,000 teachers, yet NAT insists that the teachers belong to their union by virtue of their posting and workstation. So at stake is the more than 40 million monthly fees from the teachers who are now under permanent and pensionable terms after serving as interns for 2 years. So the JSS teachers are in primary schools, which fall under NAT's jurisdiction, and not secondary schools, which is our sister union, Collins OU. That is the NAT Secretary General. That is a quote by OU. So OU accused TSU of having an ulterior motive by forcing the teachers to be represented by KUPPET in what he claimed was aimed at driving a wedge between the two teachers' unions. So we are hoping to see how that story develops. Remember, the teachers protested for 2 years seeking permanent and pensionable terms. They had initially been placed under internship positions. So finally we are seeing that they got to be employed in permanent and pensionable terms. Now a new query rises up. Which union do they belong to? Hopefully that will be resolved. Now, a story here at the Daily Nation on my top right why Star won't hang up his running shoes just yet. A picture of Eliud Kipchoge there. So although Kipchoge came in 6th at the London Marathon, the record-smashing legend pocketed more than the winner thanks to hefty appearance fees that organizers doled out for the star's presence. And now that story continues on page 37 of the Daily Nation. Now, just diving deeper into these stories being highlighted here. So, for instance, so the story about the state stops screening of BBC expose on protesters killing. That story is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. So extrajudicial executions, pressure mounts on the government to take action against rogue security officers. And the spokesperson says the government pressured them. This is the spokesperson for BBC who the Daily Nation managed to get a comment from. So the spokesperson says the government pressured them to stop screening the video that implicated security officers. So according to the Daily Nation, Kenyan authorities put pressure on BBC to halt the screening of a report showing police officers who shot dead anti-tax protesters at Parliament during demonstrations in June last year. So this emerged as pressure mounted on the government to take action on rogue security officers who unlawfully killed and maimed scores of unarmed protesters. So a screening of BBC, this is a quote by the BBC spokesperson. A screening of BBC Africa's Eyes Blood Parliament in Kenya was cancelled because of pressure from the authorities. We are disappointed not to have been able to share the documentary and panel discussion as planned. In the meantime, audiences can watch the film on BBC Africa's YouTube channel. So that's what the spokesperson has said. Remember, we are seeing also a reaction from Kenyans based on this expose. We have seen a Kenyan write to the International Criminal Court seeking a reaction from the ICC that they should come down to Kenya, maybe call out, particularly the security agencies, have someone be held accountable for the deaths and disappearance and violations of human rights that happened during the anti-tax protest last year. So in the June protest, BBC revisits shootings. Now, a major case of focus in the expose is the shooting dead of Eric Shieni, who was a finance student at the University of Nairobi. Remember, he was only 27 years old, and as he was walking out of Parliament, this is after the youth had managed to breach Parliament, with members of Parliament fleeing in fear. So they didn't last that long in Parliament, and as he was walking out, the BBC expose shows him walking out of Parliament alive, but he never made it far, and he was shot dead on the head. So BBC analyzed up to more than 150 images that were taken after and before Shieni was shot, and they were able to identify the soldier who fired at the back of his head. The identity of the officer has yet to be made public, but his images have been widely circulated on social media platforms. According to the expose, the shooter was a member of the armed forces. So the BBC reporters and journalists tried to reach out to the security agents for a response. The Nation as well have tried to reach out to the named security agents, that is the KDF, police officers in Kenya, the National Police Service, as well as we are seeing here an officer from the Central Police Station, and all of these have not borne any fruit as many Kenyans might have expected. Now, moving on to another story, an interesting story actually highlighted here in the Daily Nation. New deadly mosquito species found on Kenya-Tanzania coast. So this is a health story. Findings were published last week in Molecular Ecology, a leading global peer-reviewed journal. So scientists say it is highly resistant to insecticides and belongs to the Anopheles Gambiae complex. So the genetic sequence here, the pony molecular form has a unique insecticide resistance profile. So Ms. Sophia Munyi, the lead researcher, says that they deployed the latest technology in genetic sequencing for malaria. Genetic sequencing in malaria, specifically whole genome sequencing, refers to the determining the complete DNA sequence of a malaria parasite or a mosquito carrying the parasite. So this technology helps researchers understand the parasite's genetic makeup, including mutations and variations, which are crucial to study disease mechanisms, drug resistance, and developing new treatments and vaccines. So the whole genome sequencing provides a comprehensive view of malaria parasite genome, allowing scientists to identify genes responsible for aspects of the parasite's life cycle. So we'll be keeping you updated on that. Research on science. So a new deadly mosquito species found in Tanzania, and it is resistant to insecticides. Remember, this comes at a time when a new influenza type A strain is spreading across the country, and it is, remember, health experts had reported that the strain is actually resistant to any antibiotic out there. So back to the Standard newspaper, and just diving deeper into the story here on the Gen Z protests. It goes on in page 6 of the Standard newspaper. And so according to the Standard, they give a summary of the deadly aftermath. So in June 18th, 2024, the controversial finance bill is unveiled. In June 20th, 2024, Rex Kanyike Masai is shot dead in the CBD during running battles between police and protesters. Now, 5 days later, on June 25th, 2024, Parliament under siege after an armed protesters stormed the building, leading to the shooting dead of David Chege, Erickson Mutisia, and Eric Shieni. So 39 statistics here. Statistics are also being highlighted here. 39 protesters were killed, 32 protesters were abducted, 361 protesters were injured, and 627 protesters were arrested in that period. So the BBC investigation pieces together the events of the June 25th, 2024, when demonstrators protested against the finance bill. The protest left at least 3 young men dead outside Parliament. Remember, we had a picture that was doing rounds on social media about with brains being scattered on the floor outside Parliament after one of the peaceful protesters was shot dead. Definitely very interesting story. For the first time to see a documentary being done on that incident last year. Remember, this comes at a time when we are expecting a new finance bill, and the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is John Mbadi, already hints at a new raft of taxes. So we'll be keeping you updated on how that goes. Stay tuned, and I'll be taking a short break. I'll be right back with more updates, more as we delve deeper into the top stories making headlines in our dailies. Stay tuned.
Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes.
For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link, and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders, and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192 or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, Rotating Equipment Repair Technician, Valve Overhaul Technician, Machining Technician. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
And welcome back to the Morning Brew. So we are still reviewing the newspapers, the top stories making headlines today, and among the stories highlighted here, why ugali will soon become costly. So hard times, Agriculture Ministry set to open imports of 5.5 million shillings. 5.5 million bags of yellow maize and release regular stocks. So a 90-kilogram bag of maize is going for 4,200 shillings in the local market compared to 4,600 shillings in neighboring Uganda and 5,200 shillings in South Sudan. So according to the Daily Nation, millers have warned that maize shortage in the North Rift will soon cause consumer prices of flour to skyrocket. Some millers have been forced to suspend operations and reduce workforce, citing maize unavailability. It it has emerged that most farmers sold their maize shortly after harvest to dealers exporting to neighboring countries, including Uganda and South Sudan, because of attractive prices. Remember the difference in prices. A 90-kilogram bag of maize in Kenya goes for 4,200 shillings, while the same bag goes for 4,600 shillings in Uganda and 5,200 shillings in South Sudan. So also, crop failure is being blamed for this. Most parts of Uganda experienced crop failure last season because of unrelenting dry spell, and traders turned to Kenya to plug the maize shortage. So most farmers are quoted here by Mr. Jackson Kemboi, an agriculture expert and farmer in Uasin Gishu County. He says most farmers have exhausted their maize stock after they sold their produce during the harvest period, driven by high demand of maize and attractive rates in parts of Uganda and South Sudan. So yeah, agriculture experts and farmers have cast doubts on the accurate production volume of maize in the country last season, terming the 75 million bags impractical and warning of a further shortage that will push the cost of unga beyond the reach of most households. So what is emerging is that the maize harvest last season was below the 75 million bags as projected by the government. This can be attributed to the supply of substandard fertilizer and fake seed, land fragmentation into uneconomical units, repeated disease outbreak, and heavy rains during the harvest period contributed to the decline in yield. That is still a quote by Ezekiel Kowich. So the Ministry of Agriculture projected a maize yield of 75 million bags last season, attributing the bumper harvest to favorable weather conditions and government's fertilizer subsidy program. So the country actually produced 47.6 million bags of 90 kg in the 2023 season, an increase of about 38.8% compared to the previous period. So we will be keeping you updated on how that goes. Remember, we are talking about the basket, one of the basic commodities in every household. It will be affected by prices. Remember, this comes at a time when fertilizer distribution is currently ongoing in the country. Moving on to another story in the courts. So the court has validated Malala's removal from UDA post. Remember, Cleophas Malala previously served as the UDA Secretary General, and he was ousted a few months ago. So judge also confirms Omar's appointment to take over as party Secretary General. So a tribunal had wanted former Kakamega Senator reinstated temporarily. So the High Court in Milimani, Nairobi, has endorsed the removal of former Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala as UDA Secretary General. It also affirmed the decision of the party's National Executive Committee to appoint East African Legislative Assembly member Hassan Omar to replace Mr. Malala. So a declaration is issued of affirming the Gazette notice dated August 19th, 2024, and the changes therein, the removal of Mr. Malala as acting Secretary General and appointment of Mr. Omar in that capacity remains valid and in force. That is an interesting story there. Remember, the former UDA Secretary General, that is Cleophas Malala, has been very vocal of late, and he came out yesterday, I think this week on Sunday, and the stories were highlighted in yesterday's dailies. His allegations about the UDA party not paying taxes, actually evading taxes, and among other raft of accusations being labelled against the ruling party. Moving on, MP Jalango faulted for Kisii witchcraft remarks. Again, so Langata MP Felix Oduor, aka Jalango, has found himself on the receiving end following his public utterances in Kisii County on Sunday. The first time lawmaker, among other leaders, had joined Deputy President Kithure Kindiki to raise funds for construction of Morani Catholic Church. He claimed to have traveled to Kisii a day before and spent some time at a local joint within the area. So the comedian cum politician then claimed that during his short stay at a local joint, a group of men whom he called the Council of Witches were conversing about the development area the development area MP Japheth Nyakundi had done. So according to Mr. Jalango, the 12 men were bitter that the legislator had connected many of his constituents with electricity, thus making their habit of walking at night difficult, as they could easily be seen. So yesterday, this is a quote, I'm reading. So yesterday on Saturday, I arrived here early. I slept here in Marani at a place called Marani Simba Lodge. While there, I saw a group of men having some baraza, around 12 people conversing. I said, let me eavesdrop on their conversation. That's how I came to realize that it was a council of witches. They were night runners discussing how Honorable Japheth had disrupted their nocturnal activities by installing electricity in the village. So as soon as Jalango finished making his address, Kenyans thronged to social media to call him out, saying his remarks were offensive and painted the Gusii culture in a bad light. They demanded that he apologize and retracted his words. So recently we also had, that is Mutula Kilonzo, the senator for Makueni. He recently came out with comments about people of the people of Homa Bay, which he was also forced to retract. So again, look into the leaders, eyes on leaders, on whatever they speak. They should be aware that whatever they speak in public domain could actually be offensive to a certain group of people. Some of these comments could trigger even violence. So again, a call to leaders to be cautious on their comments. Moving on to a story here by Gachagua, about Gachagua. So Gachagua says we will refund housing levy. So Rigathi promises taxpayers that they will claw back the dignity of their pay slips once they win in 2027. So the ex-deputy president says they will heavily invest in scientific research to arrive at a formula to beat Ruto. Now remember, we are not sure whether the former deputy president will actually be allowed to vie. Remember, the fact that he was impeached means he cannot vie for an elective position in the for the next 10 years. That is a constitutional law. It is constitutional that an impeached official is not fit to vie for office again. So we'll be seeing how that goes. Will he actually be on the ballot in the coming general elections, or will we have other people in the ballot? Will he actually be stopped from vying? Eyes on that. Now, an interesting story here about Susan Kihika. That is the Nakuru governor, who has been having a tough time responding. Kenyans have been calling her out, particularly on social media, and the residents of Nakuru about her whereabouts. So Kihika is an American, petitioner tells court. That is the headline here on page 3 of the Standard newspaper. So Mwaniki claims that the governor holds Kenyan and US citizenship, which makes her ineligible to hold office. So Kihika recently returned to Kenya from United States, where she gave birth to twins. So just days after Nakuru Governor Susan Kihika returned to the country from an extended stay in the United States, a petition has been filed in court seeking her removal from office. So the petitioner, Peter Kuria Mwaniki, is seeking an urgent declaration from the Constitutional and Human Rights Division of the High Court that Kihika is unfit to hold office on the grounds that she holds dual citizenship, Kenyan and American. So a declaration be issued. So this Mwaniki says in his petition, he says a declaration be issued that Kihika is not fit and a fit and proper person with due regard to her honesty, dignity, personal integrity, and suitability, and hence her election was inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid. So the IEBC neglected its obligation under Article 88 to verify her eligibility. This failure not only undermines the 2022 elections, but risks compromising future ones. So that is a quote by the petitioner, that is Peter Mwaniki, who now wants the governor Susan Kihika be removed from office. We'll definitely be keeping you updated on that. And moving on to another story, Mutua's overseas jobs. So senators told how applicants lost millions. So jobs Job seekers said they had paid between 15,000 and 55,000 shillings for promised jobs. The Ministry of Labour and National Employment Authority were involved in the process. But despite this, we are having a case of job applicants losing millions. So more than 300 Kenyans paid millions of shillings for jobs in the Middle East through a recruitment exercise commissioned by the Ministry of Labour last year, but are yet to secure employment. So representatives of the job seekers who appeared before the Senate Labour Committee yesterday recounted how they each paid between 15,000 and 55,000 shillings for employment promises that remained unfulfilled months later, despite assurances from state agency. So the Senate committee has summoned Labour Cabinet Secretary, that is Alfred Mutua, and the management of the National Employment Authority to shed light on the matter, as the ministry directly supervised the much publicized recruitment drive. So a quote here by one of the job applicants is, "I borrowed 15,000 shillings from my wife for the medical tests and 40,000 shillings for the visa from my in-law, who is now demanding a refund. I was told to wait for the visa, which I have not received to date." Interesting story, that one, at a time when Kenyans are facing a high rate of unemployment. And of course, we're seeing the hand of the government, of the Ministry of Labour, particularly Alfred Mutua, the CS of Labour, and he has been calling on Kenyans to actually apply for these jobs abroad. And now it is coming out that people paid a lot of money and are yet to secure those job opportunities in the Middle East and other countries abroad. Now, in another story, a sad story actually, echoes of Mtongwe ferry tragedy. So survivors, 3 decades quest for justice. So some 273 people died on the morning of April 29, 1994, when a ferry sank in the Indian Ocean. Some families say they received only 17,000 shillings in compensation for the loss of their loved ones. So a quote here by one of the survivors says, "I was hit by the sinking ferry and sustained an injury on the cheek, but it has been a struggle getting compensation since that time." Remember, this is an incident that happened in 1994, and the survivors of that incident are still calling for justice from the government, and hopefully maybe something can be done about that. Still on another tragedy, Mahiu flood victims wait for Ruto's promise 12 months later. So in the wee hours of April 29th, 2024, a blocked railway culvert in Kijabe burst, flooding villages, burying victims in sand. So not one government promise has been fulfilled, as survivors still try to come to terms with the tragedy. A quote here by Nakuru Senator, that is Tabitha Karanja. She says, "The president had on several occasions promised to resettle these victims, but it is sad that months after the incident, many are now being evicted from their houses." So 1 year ago today, the sounds of rumbling boulders, gushing waters, followed by screams of pain and despair, hit several villages in Mahiu, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction. So more than 60 people, mainly minors, were killed. The fate of tens of others remains unknown, while properties worth millions of shillings was reduced to waste. So for tens of families, this marks the darkest night of their lives, and 1 year on, not a single government promise has been fulfilled as they try to come to terms with the incident. So in the early hours of 29th April 2024, a blocked railway culvert in Kijabe burst, and flooding several villages, burying victims in sand and leaving a trail of destruction. So for the next couple of days, one body after another were recovered some tens of kilometers away as the victims tried to grasp the magnitude of the incident. A sad story indeed, and hopefully more than a year later, it is sad to see that the government is yet to respond to any of these to actually compensate and even try to resettle the survivors of that incident. Sad story indeed. Moving on to another story in churches. So Bishop abandons former MCA's burial after political chaos erupts. That is on page 14 of the Standard newspaper. So a funeral service to honor former Sikh Hindu MCA turned chaotic as leaders clashed over Ford Kenya's leadership. So the chaos forced the SK bishop to walk out in frustration, unable to restore order. A quote here by Motosiet MCA, that is Bernard Muganda. He says, "We are here to mourn a great man. Musamba died a frustrated man. He was denied a job and dumped by Wetangula despite his loyal service to Ford Kenya." So that is definitely part of the wrangles going on in Ford Kenya, and yeah, we will be keeping you updated on any of those stories. Now, moving on to another story here in agriculture. A mass livestock vaccination stalls over funding crisis. So remember, all livestock in the country were actually supposed to be vaccinated. This was a story that was making headlines, particularly late last year. So according to the Standard newspaper here today, mass livestock vaccination stalls over funding crisis. So the national mass vaccination campaign for livestock aimed at combating animal disease and securing export markets has stalled due to lack of funding. So the Directorate of Veterinary Services and the Kenya Veterinary Vaccines Production Institute have confirmed that the exercise has been paralyzed by insufficient funds. So a quote here by John Ngingi, that is the chairman of the Kenya Veterinary Paraprofessionals Association. He says, "We understand that the exercise was called off due to a lack of money, and this will have significant repercussions on livestock production in the coming months." So last year, President William Ruto announced plans to vaccinate up to 22 million cattle against foot and mouth disease and 50 million sheep and goats against Pettis ruminants disease. So this development follows a recent alert from the National Drought Management Authority regarding an outbreak of livestock diseases in 7 arid and semi-arid regions in several ASAL counties. So outbreaks reported in Isiolo, Marsabit, Pokot, Garissa, Kitui, Meru, and Narok have severely impacted livestock production, raising urgent calls for vaccination. So we'll be seeing how that goes. Will funds actually be put into that to ensure that the national vaccination exercise actually takes place? Now, moving forward to matters business here at the Financial Standard, the headline reads, "Kenya's industrial takeoff faces hurdles." So causes of these hurdles: unstable power supply and other missed opportunities where investors are scared off by corruption and legal instability rank high among the country's key missteps. So that story continues on page 24 and 25 of the Financial Standard. And the story here also about matters economics in the Standard is, banks bet on Pan-African payment system to spur trade. Interesting stories indeed. So about the local banks betting on Pan-African payment systems to spur trade. So the move positions them to facilitate seamless cross-border payments amid shifting global landscape. So a KCB statement reads, with a presence in 7 African countries, that is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, DR and DRC, KCB brings on board its payments and collections expertise spanning over a century. So we are hoping to see how that affects businesses, particularly intra-African trade here in the continent. Also, another story here is Kenya losing its economic power to EAC neighbors. A good question. On page 23 of the Standard, the country is slowly losing its trading charm against Tanzania and Uganda despite the size of its economy. So while fielding while fielding questions during his 4-day visit trip to China, President William Ruto sought to explain why Kenyan traders consider local goods expensive compared to neighboring markets. So a quote by Ruto here reads, "The difference between us and our neighbors is that Kenya is in the middle income category. Our neighbors Tanzania and Uganda and the rest are the least developed countries," he explained in a video that was doing rounds on social media. So in the sessions, Kenyans raised concerns about how the business environment is suffocating industrialization and that the focus has now moved to Tanzania and Uganda. Kenyan traders are now buying goods from these two countries to shipment to China. So we are categorized higher than them. So while they export duty-free, Kenya exports with duty, Ruto explained, adding that Kenya and China will be signing an economic partnership framework so that agreements can be reached to the level playing field. So numbers here being given by a quote here by Patrick Muheria, that is Group CEO Stanbic Holdings. He says in Uganda, actually they are looking into revising the growth numbers for next year close to 9% because of the significant foreign direct investment that has come into the country in the last 12 months. So statistics being given here shows that Kenya's total exports to Uganda in 2022, Kenya exports to Uganda, they went to from 2022 from 91.7 billion, largely driven by the increase in exports of crude oil. Now, and in growth, 25.9% growth in exports to Tanzania. So this is actually statistics on the difference in terms of exports in trade. So 97.2 billion shillings. This is Kenya's total exports to Uganda in 2022 from 91.7 billion shillings, largely driven by the increase in exports of crude oil. So we are seeing we are hoping to see how this story proceeds. Is Kenya losing its economic power to EAC neighbors? Hopefully not. So on what hurts Kenya's industrial takeoff? So the country faces an unstable power supply and other missed opportunities opportunities where investors are scared of petty corruption and legal instability. So 90% of electricity consumed in the country, that is from renewable sources, and Parliament too has been pushing for low cost of power. So 70,000 megawatts of electricity generating capacity of Vietnam with 100 million people compared to Kenya's installed capacity of 4,000 megawatts only serving 50 million people. Now 68 billion shillings, this is the consumer savings annually if the power sector agencies can reduce system losses to 14.5% from the current 23.47% according to the KAM. So the number 5,567, this is the number of Kenyans who have been declared redundant over the past years according to the Federation of Kenya Employers. Interesting stories there indeed. Make sure to grab yourself a copy of the Daily Nation and the Standard to see more, to dive deeper into the stories I have highlighted for you this morning. Now, remember, Ruto is back from China. He came back from China, and in fact, he flew from China and went direct to the Pope's burial. And here a story is on page 31 of the Standard newspaper. Ruto's SGR road projects with China hailed by Western leaders. So Kenya's deal with China to extend the SGR and expand the Malaba Highway, they say, will boost Western regional trade. They say the projects will also revitalize the region, unlocking economic potential and improving market access. So we are waiting to know exactly when that project will resume the SGR extension, particularly, and other goodies that the president came back with from China. Now, moving on to matters sports, back at the back of the Standard newspaper, Arteta faces Champions League battle against mentor Enrique. So the PSG boss played a major role in Arteta's impressive transition to the pitch, to the dugout. So Ghana's host French champions to the day, hoping to get a big first leg advantage. So Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta will have to beat one of the most influential figures in his football life when the Gunners face Luis Enrique's Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League semi-finals. So Arteta's side hosts PSG in the first leg today, as the Spaniard aims to lead Arsenal to only the second Champions League final appearance in their history. So standing in his way is a close friend who, along with Manchester City's boss, that is Pep Guardiola, played a major role in the compatriots' impressive transition from the pitch to the dugout. So match fact: did you know 30 Arsenal's total of 30 goals in this season's tournament is the club's highest tally in a single edition of the competition. So we will be keeping you updated on how that goes. Today's game is Arsenal versus PSG at 10 p.m. It is the semi-final. It is a semi-final fixture, and we will be keeping you updated with the results on who will win. Will it be Arsenal or Paris Saint-Germain? So again, still on PSG hope to have Dembele faring against Arsenal today. So Paris Saint-Germain chances of beating Arsenal and reaching the Champions League the Champions League final may depend to a large extent on Ousmane Dembele rediscovering the form in front of goal that made him Europe's most lethal finisher in the first 3 months of this year. So Dembele scored 25 goals in 20 games in all the competitions for PSG between mid-December and mid-March. His statistics, those of a player completely transformed as he was turned by coach Luis Enrique from a winger into a central striker. Interesting story. Definitely we'll be watching that game and keeping you updated on more. And now moving closer home, why Shabana could rattle title hopefuls Police, Tusker and Gore. So Glamour boys are 6 points off leaders Police after 5 wins in 7 matches. So Police lead log with 52 points, a point behind Tusker and 2 ahead of Gor Mahia. So Shabana fans can dare dream. The question remains, what if? The 45-year-old football club from fun-rich Gusii lands are currently sitting 4th in the FKF Premier League standings, albeit with only 6 points separating them and leaders Kenya Police. So the Glamour Boys, as they are commonly referred to, has collected 16 points out of the possible 21 points from their last 7 matches, 5 wins and a draw that has lifted them in the top 4, if not title contention. So the Football Kenya Federation Premier League standings with 6 matches left. On the top of the table is Kenya Police with 52 points. Number 2 is Tusker with 53, still with 52 points. And Gor Mahia with 50 points. Shabana FC comes in 4th place with 46 points, and at 5th position is Kakamega Homeboys, 42 points. AFC Leopards takes 6th position with 42 points. Those are some of the top stories making sports stories, particularly from the Standard newspaper. Let's see if so in the Daily Nation, a different story here comes. Maraga, so cup an opportunity to showcase Kenyan talent. So Kenya's rising stars will be playing their first Group B match against cup favorites Morocco on Thursday in Cairo. So this is the under-20 AFCON. 13 teams from Africa converged in Cairo for biennial tournament. So former Harambee Stars midfielder McDonald Mariga has urged the Kenyan under-20 men's football team players to use the 2025 under-20 AFCON Cup of Nations finals in Cairo as a platform to showcase their talent so as to boost their chances of securing opportunities to play abroad. So Kenya under-20 men's teams, nicknamed Rising Stars, are among the 13 nations competing in the tournament that began on Sunday and will end on May 18th. Kenya will play their first Group B match against Morocco on Thursday. So we are definitely wishing them all the best, and we'll definitely be watching those games to keep you updated on how our Kenyan teams performed in those matches. And still on sports, so tribunal reinstates Kenya Rugby Union boss Mutai. So the Sports Disputes Tribunal has quashed suspension of Mr. Alexander Kiplagat Mutai, Sasha Mutai, as the chairperson of the Kenya Rugby Union, following findings that the process was rushed and tainted with illegalities. So the tribunal chairman, that is the tribunal chaired by Bernard Wafula Murunga, said the suspension of Mr. Mutai was illegal and null as it violated the Kenya Rugby Constitution and the board chair and the board charter actually. So the meeting of the board of directors, this is a quote by the tribunal. This is what the tribunal said. The meeting of the board of directors of Kenya Rugby Union held on March 6, 2025, and the resolutions passed to suspend Mr. Mutai are in violation of the Kenya Rugby Constitution and board charter. In addition, they were not within the tenets of natural justice and are therefore illegal, null, and void. So Mr. Mutai was suspended from his office by the KRU board over alleged loss of confidence to members of the union. So however, while ruling on his application to quash the suspension, the tribunal reinstated him and stated that he is still the recognized chairperson. It stressed that he is entitled to all attendant benefits and any other privileges as of the occupier of that office. Interesting story. Definitely more stories. So why Kipchoge will still be running? Remember, this is one of the greatest runners of all time. So his status, and he's currently 40 years old, and he is still on the track. And his status as greatest marathoner of all time earns him as high as 19.5 million shillings in just a race appearance fee. Wow. And so Eliud Kipchoge, we see him posing for a photo in front of the Buckingham Palace at St. James Park in London on Saturday. That was ahead of his marathon. So appearance fees, not prize money or bonuses, is where the real money lies for elite athletes. Consider the case of Kenyan distance runner, that is legend Paul Terragat. So the world was abuzz when Tergat, the 5-time world champion, country champions winner who also won the World Half Marathon Championship thrice, announced in 2000 that he will run his maiden 42 kilometers race at the 2001 London Marathon. So Tergat, then 31, signed a 1-year deal believed to be worth a total of $300,000 US, equating to 23.4 million Kenyan shillings. That was then at the exchange rate back then. So in appearance fee with the London Marathon. So under the London Marathon system of cumulative time bonuses, had Tergat broken the world record of 2 hours, 5 minutes and 42 seconds at the time, he would have gotten a bonus of 7.8 million shillings back then. Right now we are seeing also, this is Eliud Kipchoge still, and he is getting a similar bonus to what Tergat used to get. And according to Kipchoge, he says he is not leaving the tracks yet. Why Kipchoge will still be running? So on we saw him finish 6th this Sunday, and he says the race is in his heart, and it is not about age or whether he actually wins the race. Definitely a name we will never forget, that is Eliud Kipchoge. And those are some of the top stories making headlines across different segments of the news. I have highlighted for you stories, top national stories, education stories, business stories, agriculture, as well as sports. Ensure to grab yourself a copy of the dailies on your way to work to delve deeper into the stories I have not highlighted for you this morning. Stay tuned for more updates in our subsequent bulletins at 1 p.m, 4 p.m, 7 p.m, and 9 p.m. My name is DANFLOW, LINDWE. Cheers.
Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192 or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, Rotating Equipment Repair Technician, Valve Overhaul Technician, Machining Technician. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.